Hey everybody, this is Defense Mechanism. I wanted to talk about how to customize your LSDj ROM with LSDPatcher. This is something that I covered in the latest Intense Tech article, but I also wanted to make a video about it because I think it's kind of fun to compare the differences in this new version with an older version of the patcher, which you might have used in the past, and also just to kind of show off the features of the new patcher. So the first thing you'll need is an LSDj ROM. You also need to download the latest version of LSDPatch, which you can get at the link that I'll post in the description. And you'll also need Java installed, a version that is version 8 or higher. And if anybody knows how to check versions of Java on a Mac and how to install new versions, I'm not a Mac user, but it would be really helpful if you could post in the comments. So thanks in advance. But assuming you figured that out, all you got to do is load up the lsdpatch.jar. This is version 1.10.4. The first thing it'll do is prompt you to load an LSDj ROM, which you can do. I've already done it here. And if there is a save file that shares the file name of the ROM, it will automatically load it here. So one thing I wanted to jump right into is just loading up custom samples into LSDj. I'm also going to bring in this old version of the patcher so you can see kind of the differences in workflow and also hear the differences in sound. I'm going to put this volume all the way up. This is just the playback volume. So you can see here we've got these kind of MPC style keys, which or pads rather, which when you click on them will play the sample. These are also mapped to the keys on the keyboard: 1, 2, 3, 4, Q, W, E, R, A, S, D, F, and Z, X, C. So that's actually pretty cool. You'd probably already be able to hear some of the quality differences. This one's not too bad, but let's go ahead and load up a custom sample. So I'm going to pull up an empty kit over here and an empty kit over here. And I'm going to just do this speech sample. Now, one thing you can see here is it says kit full, trimmed sample to fit. So every kit has 2.841 seconds. And my sample was longer than that, but it automatically trimmed the sample.
I know what lies ahead. You have to find a brain.
You can see that here, 33 frames. So if I drag the same sample over to this patcher, nothing happens. It's just, there's too much. I would have to open an audio editor, trim the end off the sample, save it, and then drag it in again, or click add sample. But I've already done that, so.
I know what lies ahead. You have to find a brain.
One thing you can hear is like in this weird silence, there's like this noise.
I know what lies ahead. You have to find a brain.
It's also just a lot cracklier. Some versions of the patcher do have a dither slider that you can adjust, which basically just adds noise. But in this new version, there is higher quality resampling, higher quality bit crushing to 4-bit, and higher quality dithering. So all of those things are automatically applied, and I think you can really hear the difference. Another thing is that you can adjust the volume or the pitch or the trimming of the end of the sample right in the patcher, so it saves a lot of extra workflow. Let's boost this by like 3 dB and see how it sounds.
I know what lies ahead. You have to find a brain.
You can see it also trimmed off a few extra frames just to keep everything inside this limitation here.
I know what lies ahead. You have to find a brain. I know what lies ahead. You have to find a brain.
Like, it just sounds so much clearer to me. So let's move on to the next sample. I'm going to rename this kit so I know what it is. And in here we've got these little kit advanced buttons, so I can just load up the next kit already. Let's try a drum loop. This one is from Lewis Cole. It's honestly not bad, right? The old one is a little bit grainier, but it's not by any means like unplayable. I think where it really shines is, let's bump this up a couple of dB. It also, this sample is already processed. Like Lewis Cole's dynamic processing is great. It makes his drums sound awesome. So it just gives them a whole lot of like real body and presence. So boosting this, I think, sounds really awesome. I think in the new version, that kick retains a lot of that like oomph in the dynamics. Like the kick is just a lot more impactful, I think. So I'm gonna rename this kit, and let's move on to another sample. So I think for the next one, we'll try a chord. And this patcher, for some reason, has problems playing back the whole sample. So like it is here, but it's only playing back the beginning for some reason. It's not too bad. This one is also just still a little grainier. The new one is a lot smoother because of that extra kind of smoothed out dither. There's another thing in this new patcher which is designed to kind of work around this wave RAM refresh bug, which is basically that when you play a sample in LSDj, it has to load banks of 32 samples at a time. And every time you do that, the first sample is just, it's always the previous sample that was in that bank, that was in the wave RAM before you reload it. So the patcher kind of averages out those two samples to make it a less obvious issue with the Game Boy Audio. So again, I think I'm going to increase the volume. You can start to hear a little distortion here, but it's not like a bad kind of distortion. But we can also lower the volume. This is great if you want to have, kits of the same sample, but at multiple volumes. There's not really a way to do that in LSDj. You can use the E commands, but it introduces this noise because of the wave channel. So it's probably better to just, lower the volume on the individual samples themselves. I'll keep this at 2. And then another thing you can do is just drag in another sample and pitch it up. So I'm running out of time here on this, but that's a real easy way to get some, more use. And I don't have to open up an audio editor, pitch these up, export them. I can do it all in the patcher, which is great. So let's rename this Chord. And let's try one more. So I'm going to load up this Orchestra hit. There's something I can hear at the end of this one. I'm going to bump up the volume, but it's just this extra, low end on the timpani. It might be cutting off the end of this sample a little bit, too. This full sample will get patched into the Game Boy ROM. It just has an issue with playback for some reason. So I can hear an extra timpani at the end. Another thing I wanted to mention is, even though this one has this play samples and half speed button, the new patcher will actually import the sample. You can see here, add and play samples in basically 5.7K instead of 11.5K. So if you have a sample that's too long, like the speech sample, you can actually click half speed, import it here.
I know what lies ahead. You have to find the brain.
And you can see we still have 1.9. We basically have 2 seconds free, so that when you uncheck half speed. And this is for setting the kit to play at half speed. I guess it also sets the whole kit at half speed. I'm going to take this back out. And I'll re-add this orchestra hit at full speed. I think I put this up like in... And we could also even trim off the end because there's a little noise, which I think that's a little cleaner. So, all right, let's thank the old patcher for its work. I will save this ROM just so we have something to compare to. And talk about some of the other features here. This font editor looks pretty similar to the previous one. We do have some grid lines here, which is helpful. Basically, the way this works is that you can draw in this window with both mouse buttons. So you can select colors, draw them around. You can pick between the different fonts. And then we have the Show Graphics Characters button, which will edit the graphical glyphs that are at the top of the song, chain, phrase, table, groove screens. So that's kind of cool. It just gives you an extra thing that you can customize, or these little graphics that are at the borders and that are used in the wave editor. So that's pretty cool. You can also load these. They're just PNGs, or you can save them as PNGs, so you can edit them in an external graphics editor. It's kind of nice if you have like some kind of 8-bit font and it's an image and you want to convert it to LSDj. It's really nice to be able to do that. There's also a font repository, so I'll link to that below, along with the palette repository. So let's take a look at the palette editor. This new palette editor is really one of my favorite things. It just makes editing palettes a lot of fun. So we've got a color picker here. We can pick, you can actually click on which part of the screen whose color you want to edit. So that is not quite right, but mostly should work. That should, yeah. Oh, it is right. Okay. So then we've got these randomized buttons. We can choose between this kind of color display, which is probably closer to an actual Game Boy Color screen, versus the raw, which looks more like what you see on an emulator. And we've got a desaturate button, so you can kind of see what the contrast of each color looks like. So that's pretty helpful. We can also just clone colors here, or we could swap colors here. You can randomize all, which usually on the first click, you know, it can be kind of iffy, but it can also just be a good starting point or a way to get inspiration for different palette ideas. And I kind of like the way this one is starting to look, so maybe I'll just kind of tweak these a little bit and see if I can come up with something that's kind of cool, because, you know, why not? Let's maybe swap these. We're getting there. Let's maybe swap these. I think I'm going to make these greens a little bluer. Maybe make this one a little bit darker. No, it needs to be something contrasting so I can see where the cursor is. All right. Let's maybe make this a little more blue. And let's make this a little more blue, a little lighter. And let's make this something like this. This is just kind of a proof of concept. Let's also... This isn't too bad, but I'm gonna kind of make this a little lighter. That might be kind of easy to read. All right, so let's just call this random. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this ROM. That's the new version. Make sure you do save these. There's another thing I wanted to talk about, another couple of things. This upgrade ROM button, you can click to upgrade to the latest stable or development version. make sure you save your ROM before you upgrade it. Otherwise, it'll lose all the customizations you just made. So, but it is nice because it will keep all of your customizations. Like if you load up this ROM, upgrade it, it'll say, do you want to upgrade to the latest stable? This version of the ROM is newer than the latest stable, or the latest development version. And lastly, but not least at all, the songs manager. I don't have any songs loaded right now in the save, but if I did, I could either remove them or I could export them. The song export has a new format, which is the LSD project, or .lsdprj. And it is essentially the same as the old LSD song format, which is used in the old LSD manager. Well, it's still usable. It's not really old. Or liblsdj also uses LSD song. But LSD project will include the kits in the song so that if you want to add an LSD project into your save file, it will also patch any kits that were in that song into the ROM. So that's really great. I'm going to be updating all the songs on my website to include LSD project files instead of just the save files, because I use a lot of custom kits in my songs. So that's a really cool feature. I hope more people start using it. It would be really cool to see. I guess I should also mention that you can export your kits and save them as a .kit file and also load them here. So that is a LSDJ specific format. But at any rate, now that I've saved these ROMs, let's go ahead and load them up in an emulator. I'm going to use SameBoy here. So this is our version from the old patcher. And this is the version from the new patcher. So let's check these. So you can see I've got my new palette.
I know what lies ahead. You have to find a brain. I know what lies ahead. You have to find a brain.
So to me, that's a lot better. It's louder. It's clearer.
I know what lies ahead. You have to find a brain.
If we use two of these.
I know what lies ahead. You have to find a brain.
It sounds good. But both of them sound good. I'm a little little more partial to the newer one, but it's not bad. So let's check the next kit with the drum loop. Not bad. They really both sound pretty good. Not bad, but it's really down to whatever you prefer. And I think I really like the workflow of the new one. It's just a lot easier, but definitely by no means is it bad. So let's check this chord. Again, not really bad. It's a little grainier. That's a little more distortion with two of them, but honestly probably 50-50 on this one. This one is a little bit louder, and it sounds good. So points to the new patcher for being able to adjust the volume. Also, we have these other pitched versions, which also sound really good. So, oh, did I forget to name this one? I forgot to name the Orchestra kit, so it's just empty. Okay, it's louder. It's trimmed off in the right place. That one just lacks a lot of oomph. Let's double it up and see. It's a little better. Gets a little crackly at the end. That's a little distorted, but it's not too bad. So yeah, I think that probably wraps up the patcher video. Let me know if you have any questions. I hope you found it helpful, and thanks for watching.